So good evening. Hi, my name is James, and it's a real privilege to give this talk right after Andrew has primed the entire audience on Miniscript. That's pretty awesome. I learned a lot of things, even though I encoded the stuff that they have on Peter's website. The actual justification and reasoning behind a lot of the decisions they made in that language were very insightful. So yeah, I first learned about Miniscript summer last year. I was doing this some residency at Chiang, and this website from Peter popped up, and the fact that you can now statically analyze a Bitcoin script language was a real eye opener for me. And following that, I had this thought that maybe, given that I can or one can analyze all the satisfaction paths of an output, like it may be possible to verify a more complicated contracting protocol called Bitcoin, like Lightning or payment channels or coin joins. So, like in Ethereum, you have a smart contract, and it's like this persistent object, and it can go through. You can call it multiple times, right? And you can have all the state changes, but it's still the same smart contract object. And so you can kind of analyze a Solidity contract with like a lot of traditional software security methods, because it's just a program that has state, and you call it over and over again, and there are these regular state transitions. But in Bitcoin, like a script instance just exists kind of one. It just has like, how many states does it have? 3? Like it's either unconfirmed, it's unspent confirmed, and then it's spent. And then it's done, right? Like there are no more state transitions that it can go through. So when we construct like protocols in Bitcoin, we do it over like parent-child transactions, like we have atomic swaps where there are 2 transactions involved and they're atomically linked with a hash lock. And the goal of this project that I've been working on for just a couple of months is to find like a modeling language with which we can, with the help of a tool like Miniscript, be able to model check any kind of protocol contract that you may want to use for interactive protocols. So there's a paper that I submitted to Crypto EconSys, which got accepted with a couple of notes for revision, but the bulk of this presentation is based on that. Yeah, I'll skip this. Okay, so the basic motivation is the following. So today, like if you have Lightning or you have like a coin join implementation, the wallet signs specifically for that protocol. So there's some kind of templating code that checks for the type of contract that it's signing, and it knows therefore when certain things can be done and when things can't be done. So for example, if I have some kind of protocol, let's say, and I first begin by generating script locks. Script locks can be like hash locks, public keys, all these things that we use in interactive protocols. From those, we then generate contract templates, which then must be signed and endorsed before the contract can begin, right?
Sorry, James.
Yes.
Put us at the camera. Can you do this screen?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. And so the goal is the question, I guess, is like, can we have some kind of verification against a generalized signing policy? And the signing policy might be like, I'll sign this contract if the implied balance is so and so forth, right? And we want to define a safety property of that contract that is generalizable across all contracts expressible in Bitcoin transactions and Bitcoin script, in our case, Miniscript, because we constrain our use of script to Miniscript. Okay, so that's the basic idea. So this slide is just to quickly recap Miniscript and why it's so useful, especially in the case of like contract verification. So in Miniscript, given a Miniscript encoded output, I can parse it for the different satisfaction paths and branches, right? And every satisfaction path is basically just a combination of different types of script locks. So it could be a public key, hash lock, time locks, or maybe some literal data that you need to supply the witness with to unlock the output. So that's nice, because then I can take a script or a template script, template transaction, and I can kind of start modeling what possible satisfaction paths exist, and I can kind of generate some kind of state machine out of that contract. So here's an example of an output O. And that output O may have 3 satisfaction paths. This is just an example. So we have one with time delay and a public key lock. Here's another time delay and a public key lock generated by party B. And we might have one which features 2 public keys generated by 2 parties, right? So one output script, 3 satisfaction paths encoded by, let's call it the witness encoding here, right? So this is something that you can do automate with Miniscript. Okay, so like the basic goal, I guess, is to say we have some kind of contract state, and we want to define different types of transitions which capture all contract state transitions that can occur. And I want to figure out whether I can reach a final state that is safe for the verifier. State being, for example, that I receive the funds, or I can withdraw the funds from the contract unilaterally. So another requirement for this trace is I want to make sure that the contract is designed in a way so that I can execute, if I'm let's say I'm the verifier, that I can unilaterally execute this trace, and that this trace is robust against potentially competing actions by the counterparty. So if the counterparty can do something like a race on an output, like race spend and output, the design of the contract needs to be robust and safe against that, right? And then we'll see later on how we define that over the properties of the different traces. But in the first step, we want to define the different types of transitions, and we want to define what a contract state actually is, and whether that's generalizable across any Bitcoin transaction written with Miniscript. Okay, so right, let me skip that real quick. Okay, so so I call this like modeling language TraceNet, and in TraceNet, we distinguish between only 2 actors. There may be more actors involved in the protocol, but we initially just distinguish between 2. And the reason is because the verifying internal actor will generate all these script locks, pub keys, hash locks, and it's only the internal actor the internal actor can only determine which script locks it has satisfied and shared with the outside world, right? The internal actor can only determine which script locks it itself has generated and their state. And so their state is, like, have I shared, let's say, a pre-image? Have I shared a signature? Have I shared, for example, a private key component? Like, that's the only state that the internal actor can trace. The internal actor cannot distinguish between multiple actors externally, right? It does not know whether 2 pub keys were generated by 2 people, or whether 2 parties control secrets to 2 pub keys, right? So we only have the internal actor and the external actor. So in the life cycle of a contract, let's say a payment channel, we have the generation of the script blocks, so pub keys, hash digests. We have some kind of contract verification before we sign. And then we have like contract updates. So updates can be, we add a transaction template, we add a signature, I reveal a pre-image as the contract lifecycle continues. So that's the basic, those are the 2 actors that we have in this model. Okay, so I define like 3 different types of transactions. Transitions. We have the off-chain transition, which is basically just exchange between actors, exchanging SIGs or pre-images. So nothing is actually broadcast on-chain. Then we have the actual on-chain transition, which is certain firing semantics that we'll define in a second, but this is when an actual transaction is broadcast and executed on-chain. And then we have time transitions, which are fired in specific cases. But the time transitions allows us to respect the firing ordering enforced by time locks. For the on-chain transition, I'm going to use the classical PetriNet modeling language, so that's something that I extend on. But the name PetriNet comes actually from, I forget the guy who invented it, but it's a modeling language designed to model biochemical processes. That's where the name PetriNet comes from Petri dish. And it's very useful for modeling concurrent processes which may be competing for certain types of resources. And the resource that we're modeling here are unspent outputs. Okay? So I'll start with the off-chain transition definition because that's quite frankly the easiest one. So let's say we have different script blocks. We have so we have pub keys, internally or externally generated pub keys. We might have a shared pub key. We might have hash locks, and you can see here you have the internal and external actor, and depending on whether a off-chain transition is fired, the ability of that actor to produce that witness component changes, right? So this is some kind of contract state that we're trying to express here. Let's say we have an internally generated public key. The internal actor can obviously produce the signature anytime. The external actor can only produce it obviously if it receives it from the counterparty, right? So that state's changed from 0 to 1 if this transition fires, if this off-chain transition fires. Similarly, if the internal hash lock generated by the internal actor, if the internal actor then shares the pre-image with the counterparty, then the counterparty now can produce that pre-image as well, right? So as the protocol proceeds, these events take place, and the ability of each actor to actually produce a specific witness element also changes. So we want to be able to model that, and that's what off-chain transitions do. One thing I should note, certain off-chain transitions are implied by on-chain transitions. So let's say you have a on-chain transition, a transaction being confirmed, which features the unlocking of a hash lock. That obviously implies that off-chain transition can no longer fire, because once a piece of information is revealed, you can't like reveal it again, right? That's a one-time thing. Okay, so now we have these off-chain events. So those are firing rules. You can fire at any time, but it can only fire once, and potentially it can be applied by an on-chain transition, especially if, for example, if a hash digest is spent on-chain.
So can I just clarify on the external actor?
Yeah.
The external actor cannot impact the state of the contract until they become an internal actor, right?
The external actor can definitely affect the state of the contract, regardless of the internal actor.
I thought that's how you defined it on the previous slides, that they couldn't impact. Well, they didn't have a private key.
Yeah.
To sign for something.
Okay, so I guess what I was trying to say there was, there's only the internal and external actor, because that's the only differentiation the verifying internal actor can make. The internal actor can only determine this script block, do I control it or not? The internal actor cannot say like, oh, there are 3 script blocks, I control 1, and the other 2 may be controlled by 2 other parties. Like, there's no way he or she or it can ascertain that. So in this model, it's the same actor. We had this conversation over lunch with Ariad. For example, you have like HLCs on both sides, right? Receive and send. Like that would be, those are 2 different actors I'm contracting with, but in this model, they are the same actor.
So you said that it's implied if it's on-chain that you know it off-chain, but I guess you could throw in a wrench and say, well, do you want to also take into account eclipse attacks?
I don't model that.
And
That's
you
fair.
want to take into
You
account
have
also
the
the mempool.
satellite. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should take into account the mempool. Like if the transaction is in a mempool and
Yeah.
you reveal in pre-image,
Yeah.
that's a transition.
Yeah. I don't think I differentiate between mempool and Lindsay confirmation,
Yeah, but you should.
or Eclipse attacks for that matter. But fair point. Okay, let me just quickly go through like the firings for classical net. So we define a transition. We
We've got
define.
plenty of time. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And now we want to define the firing rules for the classical PetroNet skeleton that we use for this modeling language. So there are a couple things that we use. We have a place, we have a token. And you can think of the place as the Petri dish, right? We have arcs, and we have transitions. So a token exists in a place and can only exist in a place. And a arc always points from a place to a transition, or from a transition to a place. So the direction of the arc implies where the token is being consumed from and where it goes. So here's an example. We have 3 places. I've noted an index here, 0, 1, 2. And as you can see here, there's this transition. This transition can only fire if its pre-places are populated, right? And so the pre-place here is this place here. So in this state, the transition can fire because its pre-places are populated with the amount of tokens that it needs. And when it fires, it produces tokens to its destination places. And this basically models what a on-chain transaction does, right? It takes unspent outputs and creates unspent outputs. So that's like a one-to-one modeling that we have here. We need to overlay a little more state on top of it because we're not describing like the determinisms or semantics of when a transition can fire and who can fire it. So that's what we're going to do next step. But this just captures the UTXO firing model using the Petri net. Okay, so this is just a more detailed definition. So we have M is the marking, T negative is the number of tokens from a given place that the transition requires to fire. And so we have 3 states here. So in this case, obviously the transition cannot fire because it has insufficient tokens in its pre-place. Now it can fire, in that sense it's engaged. And now after it's actually fired, it consumes the tokens, or in other words, the unspent outputs, and it creates an unspent output, but it can no longer fire, right? So that's the firing dynamic of Petri nets. So we add markings, or we add state on top of it. And I'm going to define that right here. So for every input arc, an input arc pointing from a place to a transition, you can think of that as a input of every transaction. We overlay that with a couple things. So we have H sub older, we have H sub after, and these are basically like time counters. So for every input, I have a H sub older time counter, and that's like the age of the confirmed output. Right? So once this place becomes populated, this counter begins to count. I also have an earliest fire time. So the earliest fire time is implied by the output script. But if I have a time lock here, the earliest firing time is not 0. It's going to be the time lock amount. If I have a end lock time, same here, that's the H after. My earliest firing time sub after is going to be that end lock time value, right? In the absence of time locks, we just set earliest fire time to 0, right? But that's how these like time counters work. So once the counter is higher than the earliest firing time, this releases the input arc. It releases the input arc, or the input that it's modeling. We also have a W sub actor witness marking, and that captures which actor can fire the transition, right? Because like in Bitcoin, a contract doesn't execute itself. Either like one of the purchasing parties actually executes the contract on chain. This is just a more convoluted way of like defining how that evaluation is made. So the witness marking for the transition can have the following values: internal, external, internal and external, or nothing, right? And the value that it returns is the actor that is currently capable of producing a valid witness for transition T. That's what this returns. And so the value of the witness marking changes as we fire off-chain transitions, right? So as we exchange keys and we exchange pre-images, the actors who can actually produce a valid witness changes. So that's the state that's captured here. So here's an example. We have our input arc markings. We have H after, H older. We have earliest firing times, and we have the witness marking here. So in this state, let's see here. So in this state, why is this 0? Internal, external. Okay, got it. So we have the following script block for this output. We have an internal public key, we have an external public key, and we have a time lock, a 10 block delay time lock. So the internal actor right now, so at the beginning state, there's no actor who can actually fire this transition, right? We have the pre-populated places, we have the UTXO that's available, but because it's a multi-sig output, no single actor can fire the transition, right? So the first transition that we model here is the sharing of the signature by the internal actor. The internal actor shares the signature with the counterparty. And so once that occurs, we have the following state. In this state, the witness marking returns the external actor, meaning that the external actor is the one who can actually produce a valid witness, right? But we still have the problem of the time lock. So currently the age counter, or the output age counter is at 6, but the time lock, the earliest firing time implied by the time lock is at 10, right? So it can't fire. So let's say we fire a time delay of 4. That time lock now releases in this marking, and T can fire. So T fires, and then produces these two outputs, right? So this is actually just one possible transition trace for this contract. But I illustrate just to show how the state of the contract changes with each of these transitions. So the goal of this at the end is to exhaustively produce the entire possible state space, and then determine or identify the contract execution traces that we consider safe or safe for executing, right? So that means, like, at the end of it, I want to be able to know what is the sequence of actions or events that are safe for me to do or to execute, which includes the sharing of data or sharing of signatures, as well as the broadcast of transactions. So how do I build a model like that? So I've got an example of an atomic swap. So in atomic swap, I think you guys probably all know how atomic swap works. So we have two transactions, and these are just transaction templates at the beginning. They're not signed, but both transactions are funded by funded by counterparties, the internal actor or the external actor. And in atomic swap, there are two satisfaction paths that are spendable. Right? There's the one where we do the swap, where a pre-image is revealed on chain, and there's a back out transition, a timeout, if the counterpart doesn't participate. So I want to take these two contract templates, and I want to be able to automatically model like what all different, like the different state transitions which can occur. And this is where Miniscript is very helpful, because with Miniscript I know exactly what the satisfaction paths are for every output. Okay, and there's an interesting thing that we can observe, namely for every satisfaction path that is single signer, meaning that it only requires a signature from one actor. That implies that the spending transition will send it to a destination controlled by that actor, right? Because it's the signature that controls the destination. So if there's only one pub key here, then the transition that spends along this satisfaction path will implicitly send it to a destination controlled by the internal actor, and vice versa by the external actor, right? Same here. So we have this proposed template transaction, but because this is a single pub key satisfaction path, there's an implied sweep transaction here as well. So we have one sweep transaction here, we have one single signer transaction here with a time lock, and we have a third one here, right? And the destinations of all these implied transactions are known. So from just these two transactions, we can build our entire skeleton. There's a sweep transaction here that sends to an internal satisfaction path or internal address. There are the two possible single signer transactions here. And that's the skeleton we can now work with. Any questions, or does it kind of make sense? So the goal is to take unsigned transaction templates which represent a contract from a contracting protocol, and then build out the model with which we then explore the state space. And we've defined the different types of transitions that can occur, right? Like the exchange of data, time, or the broadcast of transactions.
Every possible outcome of a contract, basically.
Exactly. Safe or not safe. We first build the entire state space. Okay, so here's an example of a possible trace. So this is the sequence of transitions. We have the funding transition from the internal actor. The external actor then funds. The internal actor then swaps coins, thereby revealing the pre-image. And then the external actor then swaps with that pre-image. Right? So I'm going to walk you through it. You can check how the state changes. So in this case, the internal actor has funded. So you can see the output has been moved here. The external actor can decide to do a couple things, right? So in this case, the external actor also funds the contract. You can note here, currently we're at block height 100 in this example, and this is the age of the output, 6 confirmations. But because there's no time lock, the early expiry time is at 0 and it can fire. So the input arc transitions actually have released all the input arcs. Okay. So now the external actor funds the other contract, and the swap now occurs. So as you see, when the internal actor performs a swap transaction, the state of the witness marking for this guy changes to external, right? Because once the swap transaction is executed here, the hash preimage is released, and the external actor is now able to produce the witness for this guy here, which includes the preimage of the same hash log, right? Okay, so this is another possible trace. We have the internal actor that just sweeps, right? The internal actor can move the output to another one that it controls, and subsequently, so does the other actor. So that's also a possible trace. Note that this is also safe because I get the same funds back, so to speak. So if my signing policy is an implied balance, then this trace is entirely safe. I haven't lost any funds, right? I haven't performed the swap that I wanted to, but if the signing policy is a balance, then this works as well. So finally, I have the abort trace that is also safe in that sense. We have the funding by the internal actor. We then have the sweep by the external actor. So the external actor decides to sweep away. That output is no longer available. And now I have to time out. So since no other transaction can fire, the firing rule goes, if there is a transaction that can fire, but only after delay, we fire the delay. So the 10 delay is fired. And the input arc marking goes to 10, so this is released. And now this abort transaction can occur, or can be performed by the internal actor. Okay, so this is a partial state. So this is a partial representation of the state space by the contract that we're using in this example. It starts out at Z0. That's before the contract's being funded. And here are several examples of possible state traces, if you will. And we can have a look at what the outcomes are. So in this outcome, where the internal actor reveals the hash preimage at the very beginning, sounds like a bad idea, right? But that's a trace we can reconstruct, and we can determine what the outcome is. It's bad for the internal actor, because in this case, the output's swept by the counterparty. There are traces which are safe, and the basic idea is once you've constructed the entire possible state space, all possible sequences of transitions, so the sharing of data, the broadcast of on-chain transactions, time delays, you can then determine whether there's a trace that's safe, right? And we can define that in the next slide.
How do you define safe?
So I've done a bit of a detour to come to the contract safety part, but this hopefully captures the intuition, right? So a contract is safe if my policy is defined as I want to be able to withdraw an expected amount of funds from this contract, and I want to be able to do it unilaterally without the counterparty preventing me from doing so.
Expected amount.
Right. That's a policy that you can assign internally. And so in terms of a trace that could look like this, like ideally every transition I can execute myself internally. There may be, so these are like little not edge cases, but things that we can tolerate. So let's say I can internally reach a contract state which has some trailing transitions which are only fireable by the external actor, but all states here are safe, that's fine. I can have situations where there's a race, where the external actor races me on a state transition, but if the child state that I reach has a safe trace, we can tolerate it, so that's fine. That's the kind of intuition, right? Sorry, you had a question on that.
Yeah, maybe I answered it for myself already, but my question was, why do you include the sweeping in the state conditions of the swap? Because so what I now when I was waiting for you, what I thought of was like the other one that you're proposing the swap to could then be sure that it's not going to happen, maybe. But otherwise than that, I'm not sure why the sweeping is included in the states of the swap.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, why do I include this? Why do I generate really like a sweep transition here, which is implied, right? Like the question is, why is that necessary?
Like like I propose a swap to you, and then I can do nothing, for
Yep.
example, and it will fail
Yep.
eventually, or I can sweep it,
Yep.
and it will fail as well. And so to me, for you, I think there's not really a difference
Yep.
between that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yep.
And that's why I wasn't sure why the sweep in itself was included in this.
The sweep is included for, like, for one, consistency, right? So my rule that I apply here is if it is a single signer satisfaction path, it always has a single signer spend. So my funding output is single signer, it's just one public key. The two satisfaction paths, timeout or swap, which with pre-image, they're all single signers, right? So for all these satisfaction paths, I want to model a single signer transaction. So that's really why it's just consistency. If it's a single signer who can satisfy the satisfaction path, then it's always a possibility that a single signer sweeps from there to a destination that it controls. And the same goes for the funding output. Even though I have a proposed template transaction here, right? That sends to this contract here, like the time and the swap. If I want to consistently apply a rule, the same goes for this output. It could be swept. There may be another way to generate the skeleton, but that's a consistent rule that's worked. So, I mean, there probably, there may be, I don't know, there may be a way to generate a smaller state space that reflects the same safety properties that we want to look for. That's possible.
And then does the safety assume that you act honestly? It's like in a lightning-like scenario where you only get punished if you're dishonest.
No, it doesn't assume anything about the counterparty. It assumes that you know what sequences are safe. So the contract has to be robust against the counterparty trying to interfere in any way possible. So there may be a trace which, if I go back to that slide. So if the counterparty tries to race you on certain states by broadcasting a competing transaction, your design has to be robust against that. It has to lead to a state where you can still find a safe path back to home, so to speak, right? You are able to withdraw your funds from that state, nonetheless. Okay, so I have a more complex example here, and I think we can expand the notion of contract safety here with this example. So if you consider L2 or stick hash no input, there we have rebindable transactions, right? So in a simple L2 payment transaction, I have all these timeout transitions here, right? If I time out, this is the balance that's being withdrawn. And if I update the contract, if I update the state of the payment channel, I add another transition that can spend from all the outputs of these states prior to it, right? So the update of the state model kind of looks like this. So that's my new state, commitment state, and these are the transitions which are possible because it's rebindable. That's cool, but we can kind of consider the following, because now there's so many different safe traces, right? There's so many different ways I can close this contract. I may introduce the idea that, like, I want to understand, like, how does my contract potentially deteriorate as I update it? What does I mean by deteriorate? I mean, I want to figure out, like, is there any way I can define the notion of expected contract execution length? Like, as I update this thing, like, do I potentially need more on-chain transactions to close the channel? Is that a quality we can quantify? And I want to propose the following, that we can, for example, say there may be a winning strategy that we define for the external actor, right? So it's in the external actor's interest to try to execute the longest path. For example, let's say the counterparty had the most balance at the beginning of the channel lifetime, and the updates were slowly, incrementally. So the counterparty may want to execute the longest path because the probability of you potentially missing a timeout is maximized that way. So we can actually relax the requirement of respecting the time lock ordering, for example, and we can say, look, there's a probability at every state that the timeout is missed, right? And the channel is closed with a node state. So that's the basic idea here. And for L2, that's pretty interesting because, so here we have the current state after funding, and I can either time out to this state, or which is the old state, or I can transition to this state, which is the final one. As I update this contract, the following happens. So there are additional paths, execution paths, which are possible. I can reach the final state either this way or this way, right? The rebindability of these transactions in Sagash node input allow me to do that. Likewise, there's another path to timing out. And in this case, I've just assigned different probability weights to these paths. And without actually assigning the numerical weights, we can see that the update does not change the probability of timing out or reaching the successful final state. So we can make a symbolic evaluation for this contract, and we can say the quality, if you will, of these traces don't deteriorate as I update the contract. And that's pretty cool. We can also compute, if you will, like the expected length of the contract execution. As I update my L2 channel, the paths that I potentially get are getting longer and longer and longer, right? But I can express that symbolically, and it turns out that this is actually asymptotic. So as I update the channel, given that the winning strategy for the counterparty is the longest traced, always the longest traced, the expected on-chain transaction length, however, is asymptotic. So that's also like a contract quality that we can potentially describe or verify for in this model. Okay, so it's just an overview or conclusion. What does this do? This allows us to have some kind of real-time contract verification. If you give me a bunch of contract transaction templates which are unsigned, with Miniscript and with Tracen, I can build a model and explore the entire state space, right? And I can figure out what are safe pathways for me to withdraw the expected funds. Because I can do that, I can also apply a generalized policy, like a signing policy. Like, I will only sign this contract if the balance is correct, if the withdrawal duration respects a certain bound, and I can do this across different contract types. It could be a coin join, it could be a L2 payment channel, it could be HTLCs. It should be generalizable over all these different contracts, right? So that's the basic idea. And by being able to do so, we can kind of decouple the generation of contract templates from the actual signing and the verification thereof. So one example of a potential application is, let's say you might have a dedicated hardware wallet or an HSM or some kind of key managed application that signs contracts generated by protocol implementations above it. One nice implication is, for example, today we have wallet implementations for all different type of protocols, and the liquidity is kind of caught up in each one, right? So I have to move funds on chain, or I have to export or transfer private keys. None of that's optimal. So I think it's kind of a first step towards potentially having a universal sign that's compatible across different protocols. There are several open questions. So like we have the problem of like state space. So as you update, let's say if you have a payment channel that has 20,000, 30,000 states, especially in L2, you can imagine that the state space that we explore grows exponentially. So that's something that we need to consider. Can we use this state space and the traces that it gives us? Can we use that to generate data for external watchtowers, like generalized watchtowers, because they know what paths they have to execute to be able to close your contract that you delegate to them. And finally, maybe there's like some kind of design space for higher order protocols where the clients no longer negotiate specific templates, but they negotiate policy. And there's some kind of compiler or solver that generates the actual transactions, right? And these transactions could look different from update to update, maybe improving privacy. So I just want to know that could be an interesting design space that this would potentially enable. Okay, just a couple of acknowledgements. Big thank you to the Miniscript guys for answering all my stupid questions. Super helpful. And thank you to Josh Harvey. Josh Harvey is the CTO of Lamasu. They do Bitcoin ATMs. They're really cool. and they actually specified a good part of their UI in PetriNet language. And so that's where the idea of specifying contract language in PetriNet started out with. And Professor Alberto Lafuente and Van Damme from the Technical University of Denmark, they were great sparring partners in terms of the model checking that we applied to this project. So I appreciate it's pretty late, thank you for your time, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Cool.
Thank you.
Questions?
Or comments?
So the general idea is that you can model a proposed contract and determine if it's good for you to accept it or not.
Right. And in, like what sequence it is safe for me to sign,
Right.
or for me to.
So like under my own signing policy, if all of the outcomes are safe, I'll take it. But if maybe one of them is not good for me, I can reject the policy.
Like usually there's always like a trace that's bad for me, but I know what's good for me and what's not good for me, right? And so as long as the actor, the external actor can't force me into a bad trace or bad sequence,
Okay.
it's like a safe contract in that sense. If the trace, for example, like it has to be robust against the actor doing something and the actor withholding something, right? So those are kind of the trace properties that we
But
look
not
for.
robust against you screwing up.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that can save you from that.
But then generally you have two parties, right? And they having the same principles of what being safe and not
Yes.
exclude them to interact in the said contract at some point, because eventually they're going to reach a state that, you know, this step is bad for me, or the other party will say this step is bad for me. So, you know,
So the question was like, a path that is good for me must be bad for the counterparty. And actually, so we have two actors in this model, the internal actor and the external actor, right? And so the verifying actor can actually verify for the external actor as well. So he can verify both ways. And so those paths which are safe for both the external actor and the internal actor are arguably the one that they should negotiate. Right? So if I can find a path that is safe for both the external actor and the internal actor, being just the internal actor, then I found the optimal protocol execution sequence, if you will, for both parties.
I think the point is that they're not mutually exclusive. So
Yes.
a path can be good for me and them.
Yes. Yes.
Just robust to both parties.
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Have you, is there a way to take into account minor fees? Because in the atomic clock
Yeah.
example, you say you get back the same money you put in,
Yeah.
minus
Yeah.
fees, is that right?
I haven't modeled any fees here at all, and I don't know.
Maybe an extra output, an extra circle.
You assume
goes to
they are
minus.
zero, yes.
Because what Chris is saying is like once I have fees, that implies like the ability for a transaction to be confirmed or propagated or right. Like if the fees are insufficient, then I can't conduct this on-chain transaction. That's what Chris is suggesting
I'm saying
potentially.
that it's a cost, that some of that money goes to miners.
Oh yes. In terms of cost, yes. Yes.
It'd probably be an extra circle
Yeah.
that goes to miners.
Yeah. Or I associate a lower amount for that survey. Exactly.
technically it's outside of contract already, right? If it's on chain.
But there could be a tax where one party could force another party to spend loads of money on minor fees. Not on atomic swaps, but on
Yeah.
something more complicated.
Yeah.
Just do CPFP. I mean, if you have another output, you can always CPFP, and the main output is going to be the balance of the contract propagated across the stage of transactions.
I suppose safety wouldn't normally be defined as like fee efficiency, but in certain scenarios where the attacker or adversary can force you to lose all your funds because of fees, then suddenly safety
Yeah.
That's
efficiency
It's not about
major
becomes
losing
thing.
all
worse.
your funds
Mm,
because your
anyway,
transaction
fees.
isn't confirmed, but
That's
it's that
hardcore,
you
yeah.
had to spend some money just to get your money back.
Precisely. And I think a lot of like this L2 example is kind of motivated by that, right? So as these traces get super long, and the winning strategy of the external actor may be that it takes the longest, it forces me along the longest trace. You can compute the expected on-chain length, and you can say like, am I willing to pay the fees to confirm all these bytes or not? So we can move from, so we can have like a generalized policy for balance, but we can also have one for you know, like execution costs, or we can apply like maximum bounds to that, right? So that's the general idea.
Is Miniscript strictly necessary to create that diagram?
Yes.
It is. It's strictly
Yes.
necessary. Why
Yes.
can you not just go through all the different scenarios of script?
Because it's hard to reason about the script.
Are you using the reasonability?
Because
to produce
Miniscript
that
makes it
diagram?
reasonable, yeah.
I can't generate the different satisfaction paths that I need. Where do I have that image right here? So I have my templates, which are generated by the protocol implementation. The atomic swap protocol implementation gives me these two templates, and I need to be able to determine this. I need to be able to parse for the satisfaction paths and what script blocks they contain. So in this case, single signer. I need to generate a sweep transaction here and here. Single signer, generate a sweep transaction over there. It's a pretty basic rule, yeah.
So you have a piece of software that actually parses transaction templates here, or Miniscript templates, or?
Exactly. Exactly.
So I mean, you could, I suppose, write a parser for a specific type of script, because
Yeah.
because you would reason
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
script manually,
Yeah.
but in order to have it automated, you need Miniscript.
You could.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
have something general, you need Miniscript.
Yeah, I guess that'd be like a coarser version of Miniscript.
Yeah.
Maybe fair to say.
It's a template matching
Yeah.
crap.
I guess you could, like, if you have everything parsed anyway, you could add these constraints of how fee raised this could be, or how Eclipse attack could be, and run some Monte Carlo simulation
Yeah.
and go through all of them.
Yeah.
Even the stuff that's a little bit more difficult to put in the diagram.
Yeah.
You could even run it on rec test. And like just
I would-
have it like
yeah.
have it do all the fee raising and all the weird things that you can't really reason about.
So what does a fee raise mean? A fee raise means that I'm being prevented from confirming something, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happens in practice. Because you could have an auction, or you could have somebody making too many childs, and then
Yeah. Because I don't know how like a contract could, I almost feel like that's something a contract design can't help with.
well, you can make it robust against it. You can say, well, I can never be in a situation where I must spend right now, or at least you could indicate the risk, saying, okay,
Right.
if you do this,
Right.
there's going to be this 30-sec. If this happens in a
Right.
high fee environment, you might be screwed. So don't do it in a high fee environment, something like that.
That's a really good point. So we could, for example, we could say, I evaluate for time 0, and I evaluate for a future where we have confirmed 100 extra blocks. And is the contract still safe then, or have certain things timed out? That's entirely possible. So, for example, these markings here, I capture the notion of chain height. So the chain height here is 50, and the earliest fire time is 0. So we could do this entire evaluation at 51, 52, 53, 54, right?
Yeah, but also with prevailing fee rates.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff.
Your fee rate raise is that the counterparty is a minor. And
Yes.
so then you're racing against his proof of work and everyone else
Yeah.
with your transaction.
This is something I haven't done yet, but I also thought about like, you could also do an evaluation for a reorg robustness.
Oh, God.
So like you could say like, okay, for every transition, like there's a possibility that the blockchain rewinds 2 blocks or 3 blocks. And it could be the case that you reveal the pre-image and now something's being rolled back,
Yes.
right? And what happens there? But you can still model that. Like
Yeah.
it follows the same firing
But
rules.
it's more part about time locks, and
Yeah.
you should scale your claiming time locks with the value you pour into
Yeah.
your channel.
Exactly.
Right, and with normal Lightning, you have to. Well, right now I think you have to commit to the fees
Yep.
early on, right? So there's some risk analysis that you can run there, like
Yeah.
how high should you put the fee, and then what kind of
Yeah,
Yeah.
just right now Lightning is broken. That's okay. Right?
works for me.
You could of course, okay, so
And
like,
fees are low.
one approach to fees would be like I have some kind of probability associated with fee rate at a given time. And so I assign fees to all these transitions, and now I model the entire thing probabilistically. So the probability of this trace happening is much higher because the fee rates are higher versus this one.
I don't know if you care about probabilities or about worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
But
You could have like because so that's
The
kind of
worst,
like
the worst case scenario is it's impossible to ever get your transaction.
True.
Yeah, but that
That's
could
a
be,
pretty bad
worst case
scenario.
scenarios don't open a channel, so there you go.
so in this case like we've relaxed the requirement of time locks being fired in order.
yeah.
and we're just modeling everything probabilistically. So there is the probability of a transition firing, a timeout transition firing, but before another one, because you're not vigilant or you're not watching the chain as a cost. You can still observe how the expected probability of success or failure evolves as you update the contract, as you add states to the channel. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Any other questions?
More questions?
No? Do you want to talk about Tamarind Prover or not?
Oh no, that's not even related to this. So I've been thinking about areas where you could potentially take off-the-shelf tools to verify protocols, but that's not related to this. Yeah,
That's just
it's still model checking. Like the whole approach here is like model checking. You take a model, you try to exhaustively build its state space, and you exhaustively check the state space for safety properties that you define, right? So in a protocol, let's say PGP protocol, messaging protocol, it's very similar. There are different states that we can have that we negotiate, and there are good ones and there are bad ones. So that kind of tells me what are safe actions on my part, whether the protocol design allows for me to take these safe execution traces.
cool. Okay then.
Okay, thank you.